Yeah, for sure. Good Tvach, everybody. Welcome to our shir. We are learning about muktzeh, the length, the breadth, and depth of muktzeh. Bezos Hashem. This shir is Leilu Nishmas, my father, Menachem ben Akiva, Alav Shalom, and for the quick and safe return of all the hostages, the Chatufims, Shem Yishmo. Okay, so we're learning about muktzeh, and we have learned so far that if you have a klisha malachto leisu, that is an item which is used for a purpose. Most of its purpose, yeah, it's designated mainly for Easter things, for melachas that are also on Shabbos, a pen to write with, or the examples of the Mishnah were like an axe or a hammer, things like that. You are allowed to use them for tzorech gufoi. You're allowed to use it in case of need. You're allowed to use it for a mutter purpose. You're allowed to take the hammer that's meant for building, that's primarily osir, in order to crack the coconut at the Shabbos table if your nutcracker doesn't work, and anyhow nutcracker is not good enough for coconuts anyways. So now we're going to see more today about tzorech mekoimo, about other things. Let's continue now. Yeah. Okay, Asuvi Yanuka, third line from the bottom of the page. Asuvi Yanuka. Asuvi Yanuka means basically when a baby is born, you have to set him up physically. You have to put his limbs in place. Yeah, I've seen it myself. The hands, the feet are a little bit, all over the place, disjointed a little bit, and you have to basically bring them into its proper place, like connect, and make them click in. And the question is if that's allowed or not. Why? Because there could be a question of that is dami lemetaken. It's similar, at least midarabanon, to tikkun, and tikkun is like binyan. In other words, is there a malacha? Does the malacha of boneh, malacha of building, constructing, or assembling, does that apply to the human body or not? That's a question. Now, we're not talking in Pikuach Nefesh or the Tzorach of the Koton. Yeah, we're talking obviously the baby, nothing will happen. Let's say it's Shabbos afternoon, nothing will happen if another 2 or 3 hours you're going to you do it later. Yeah, no sakona whatsoever. Are you allowed to set up the baby literally on Shabbos? Asuvi Enuka, Rav Nachman Osir, Rav Sheshes Shori. Rav Nachman said it's not allowed, midarabonon. And Rav Shesha says it's allowed. How do you know it's midrabanan? Loshen also midrabanan. Doesn't say chayin. Rav Nachman says it's also. Rav Shesha said it's allowed. Amar Rav Nachman, mino minala. How do you know that it's not allowed? That not. It says in the Mishnah, which we'll see later on, in oisin a piktvizin b'Shabbos. One is not allowed to do a piktvizin b'Shabbos. In case you don't know it's a piktvizin, that's not a problem. You're not allowed to cause yourself to vomit, to throw up. In other words, that's what the Romans used to do. That's what people with bulimia do. Yeah, people sometimes want to basically empty their stomach so they can eat more. The Romans used to do it. They were very hedonistic people. So basically, when you on Shabbos want to throw up, you put the two fingers inside or whatever you do, and you want to throw up. That is Asr on Shabbos. Why is it Asr on Shabbos? We're not talking over here. By the way, Rashi says you take a drink. It's a special drink you drink in order to throw up. Why isn't that not allowed on Shabbos? Says Rashi, don't make a mistake. It's not the refuah. Refuah is a different business. Refuah is also on Shabbos. That's not refuah. To cause myself to vomit because I want to eat more, it's not refuah. I just want to enjoy life. I had one gishmak meal on Shabbos. When I have another meal, so I'm throwing up not to be too full. That's not such good midas. It's not refuah. Why is it also on Shabbos? Oh, why is that? Metaken gavra. You see, that's not allowed because you're basically creating in an artificial, out of the norm way, you're creating space in your stomach in order to eat more. That creating of that inner space inside is a shtickle midrabanan, similar to building. You're creating something. That alone is also same thing I would say about the baby, says Rav Nachman. He says it's also to build, so to speak, your baby and click in the body. The Rav Sheshes. How would Rav Sheshes relate to that Mishnah? Rav Sheshes says it's okay to be Mesiv Yenuka, to click in the baby's body, the limbs. How do you reconcile the stira from the piktvizin, which is not allowed, the throw up method, the drink? Says Rav Sheshes, it's not the same. Hosam lav urchei Over there, it's not normal. You do something out of the way, artificial, and absolutely not derech olam. Derech olam, if you're a healthy, normal human being and you're not a teenager who's too worried about her weight or looks, yeah, it's a disease. So then you are doing it in abnormal way, and that's called bona. Bona means I take something that's not, the normal way, and I'm building, I'm creating a space which wasn't there before, and not necessarily supposed to be there. Over here, over here, the baby is born. That's the next thing you do. You want your baby to have the arms in the place and the legs in the place. That's the normal derech ha'olam. Says Rashi, unbelievable. Harei k'misha ma'achilo mashkeu. When you give somebody to eat or to drink, you're also building him. Don't eat on Shabbos. Anay chumrah. Let's put pachkevilim all over Bnei Brak. What do you say? Me'ashorim, a new chumrah, not to eat on Shabbos. Yeah, no, the new chumrah, 2025. You won't say that because eating is normal. I'm building. Yeah, big stomach. Yeah, you're building and building. Halamaisa what? It's still kind of normal. It's the normal derech oilam. It's not called building. Masha'enkin over there with a big tvizin, it's building by creating a space which is not necessarily supposed to be there. Omar Rav Sheshes, that's how Rav Sheshes basically rebuffed the proof from Rav Nachman. And now comes a new question. What made Rav Sheshes say that it is okay? Yeah, still, how does Sheshes know that it is yes okay? Does he have a source to tell me that it's yes okay to build the baby? How does he know that it's like eating and drinking? Because Lamaise, when you click in the arm and the legs and the toes or whatever, it is something new. How do you know that's fine? How do you know that building doesn't apply to the human body? You know how I know it? That not now you're going to understand the connection to
how do you click in?
They do with the nurses. When you be a midwife, yeah, they do. They're like they take the baby and
the parents not do it.
No. It's done with midwife after birth. It's done by midwife. They move him around. They do something. Yeah. Although there's another gemara, Daf Samach Vav, they wrap him around in some. Yeah, they do. How do I know? How do I know that binyan does not apply to human body? That not, it says in our very own Mishnah, Machat shel yad litol ba. Look, it says when a person has a splinter or a thorn inside his body, allowed to take machat, that's mitzad muktzeh. You can take machat, which is klishim lachtoleisu, a regular needle, sewing needle, and take out the koitz. So you see, I'm building, right? In other words, I'm basically healing the person's hand, right? And now I'm creating a healthy finger. I'm emptying the space from a foreign body, and that's called creation, building. And nobody seems to care about that. So too, I can build a baby. I, Rav Nachman. How would Rav Nachman reject that proof that building is okay from the splinter and the needle? Awesome, over there, pakid. Over there, the koitz, the thorn, is not connected to the body. It's mufkad. Literally, pikadon, like pikadon in the bank, it's deposited. It's placed there as a foreign body. It's not part of the body. And therefore, the body remains the same. There's a foreign body in and out. It mistakenly came in. I'm taking it out. I'm not building the actual body. I'm emptying it from the unwanted thing which happens to be there, which is not part of the body. That's not called building. Mashenkin over here, when you talk about the baby's limbs, loy pokid. Says Rashi, it's like taking different parts of the cupboard and building them, the drawer and the sides and the nails and the right. You are taking the body itself and you click, boom, boom, arm, leg, head. Yeah, you build the baby, and that is something internal. You're building the body, the vertebrae, the parts of the body with themselves. That's much more similar to bone than removing something that's not part of the body. Therefore, according to Rav Nachman, over here it's asur, and over there it's mutar. So we can look and Rav Sheshes allows, and as we can see, halach like Rav Sheshes, you are allowed to do it on Shabbos. You see from the English, but next Mishnah.
So
Yes.
Rav Nachman said you can or cannot do it.
You cannot do the baby. No, according to Rav Nachman, you're not allowed to build the baby, so to speak, to reassemble the baby. No, reassemble. It's first time.
Right.
And no, halacha is like Rav Sheshes, you are allowed. Kach nira from the.
Why? Because it's.
Because we don't view it as real building. Because building does not. We believe building does not apply to the human body in general. Sometimes it does, by the way. Sometimes it does. Let's say when a woman makes a braid, then we say something. The Rabbanim to us it's called bone, but there was a proof, if you remember, from Hakadosh Baruch Hu was boy nechava. So there the Torah defines, and it says in the Medrash, Hakadosh Baruch Hu made a braid, a plait in the hair of Chava, and the Torah calls it even, so that's a binyan. But there are differences in lamdas called double lagufa. Each case has its own different logic. Says the Mishnah, Konashal Zaysim. So before we continue, let's have a little bit of a shear about oil making in the ancient times of the Talmud. So how did they make oil? Well, today also they make oil. They take the olives, and from the olives you make oil. You press the oil. But there was a place called Matan. Matan was the place that you would store the olives, and only when the olives were good enough, ripe enough, soft enough, then you'd move them to the olive press and press the oil. Okay? Now, how do you know if they're good enough and already zaftig enough to take the oil from them? You take the stick, imagine yourself like a bamboo cane, yeah? Like a cane, a cane that is normally through and through, yeah, like a big cane. Take it there, you mix it, yeah, you mix it there also. Lahoifron, you mix them around, you stir and you mix, and then you check if they came. You also check, you look at the shemen, you look at the stick, a bit like you test the oil in the car, right? So lahavdil, yeah, you take and see if they're soft enough, and also you see if the oil started coming out. Yeah, you see if it's oily. If the stick itself is oily, yeah, there are two purposes. You mix them to, I don't know, make them ripen better, maybe. And also you pick it up and you see if there's oil or not. Yeah, how oily it is, how ready it is. Konishal Zaysim. Now, what about muktzeh? אם יש קשר בראשו מקבל טומאה, ואם לאו אין מקבל טומאה. Oops, we're not talking about muktzeh. If there's kesher means, like if you know how bamboo is, how's a bamboo shoot? How does it look like? Every few centimeters, you have like a knot. It's called a knot in English too. Yeah, it's closed. Yeah, you have different sections which are closed inside. Inside the corner, it's not completely hollow. There are sections that are closed. If on the top of it, in the end of it, there is a kesher that makes it basically a receptacle, then it's mekabel tuma. V'imlav ain't mekabel tuma. And if there is no receptacle, if it's just through and through, and the oil runs through the whole thing, it's not mekabel tuma. And soon we're going to know why in the Gemara. What does it mean? Regarding muktzeh, again, we don't care about muktzeh. Tum and muktzeh are not always parallel. When it comes to Shabbos, muktzeh, you are allowed to take that kodesh shel zeisim and use it. What does it mean? Whether it has Kabbalah's tum or doesn't, which I promise we'll discuss very soon, on Shabbos you're allowed to take it. What do you mean you're allowed to take it? Lamaisa, this is meant for muktzeh. It's meant for steering the zeisim, which are themselves muktzeh, and it's part of melacha. So I'm not sure if it's mamash melechas isser or not. Even by the worst case scenario, even if you view the shibush of that as dover chol, dover of not Shabbos dik, worst comes to worst, what is it? Klish malach toleisu. And klish malach toleisu, are you allowed to move on Shabbos? Yes, for gufa and mekoimoy. And that's what the first Saw says. That's what the Gemara means. The Mishnah means nitel b'Shabbos. Even if you view it as kli shemlach toleisu, but it's a kli. It's always a kli. Whether it has the closed area or completely through and through open, which we'll discuss later, it's always a kli because you can stir with it. It can look at the oil from the outside. Yeah. And then, therefore, it's a kli shemlach toleisu at worst, and you can move it for mekoim or gufay. Now, let's go back to Tuma. It's a short piece of Gemara. Frek the Gemara. Amai. Why do you say that? Now that corner, let's just give the background. אתה רוצה לשבת? אתה יכול לשבת אם אתה רוצה. Amai, frag the Gemara, why is it not mekabel tuma if it's through and through? What did we say? There's nothing stopping it. It's a hollow completely, duch and duch. It's completely hollow with no stoppage in between. Exactly. The oil can go down all the way to the bottom. Then what is it? The corner, what's corner? It's wood. We all know, we saw it many times already, pshutik le'etz are what? Pshutik le'etz are not mekabel tuma. It's not a receptacle. No, it's from wood, no receptacle. It's a flat piece of wood, not mekabel tuma. Amai, frag the Gemara, pshutik le'etzu, Upshuta klei etz and mekabelin tuma. In other words, yeah, it's a pshuta klei etz and pshuta klei etz and mekabelin tuma. And the question is as follows: when it's completely hollow, then it's not there to accept anything. In eights, only a receptacle is makabel tuma. That's the rule. So now, what are you telling me? When it's going through and through, and there's nothing to accept the oil, then it's not makabel tuma. That I accept. Very nice. But even if there is a kesha on top, who cares? I don't use the kesha for anything. I don't use that inside space, the inner space of the cane. I don't use for anything. I use it to steer the zaysim. And at the moment, the Gemara thinks in the Havamina, they only look at the outside to see if the oil reached a certain point. If I only use the outside, the fact that inside there's the kesher, so what? Imagine yourself a flat table, a flat piece of wood that I'm using as a table, as a tray, and inside, if it be a yachna and I look inside, I'll see there are some, sections. Who cares? I'm not using it. I'm not using it as kli kibul. I'm only using the outside. So it's still not called mekabel, right? So it should mekabel tuma. It should not be susceptible to tuma. And the Gemara continues the question. You want to know why? My time do me the sakbeinan. We know that kli eights are always in the Torah. When the Torah talks about them, it mentions eights together with sack. Sack, last time I checked, is something that you fill inside, meant to be filled. It's a receptacle. So to eights has to be a receptacle, not flat. And even if the flat thing inside has kesher and shmesher, who cares? I'm not using it. Answers the Gemara, Tanim Shmedom Nechemia, and comes the answer. You know, you got it wrong. When you turn and you mix zaysim and you stir them to see which zaysim are good, which are not, what do? You turn it upside down. You don't look on the outside, you look on the inside. You get it? In other words, you look at the inside of the what's its name of the cane, the inner part, and then you look to see if there is good shemen or not. That's pshat. Yeah, the checking of the oil is not done on the outside, or not primarily so. It's done on the inside. I steer and steer, then I pick it up upside down, upside down. Now the part that was inside mission around, inside the zaysim, inside, I pick it up, and then I see if I see in the first part of the internal inner space of the kesher, of the cane, I see that there's nice, good oil, how much and what quality and quantity, then I know that I know whether those olives are good or not good to be taken to the next stage of the pressing. So since the inside is used for checking, it's called a kli kibul, and as such, it's mekabel tuma, even though it's eight. Regarding muktzeh, again, we divorce muktzeh from tuma, like Abai said, tuma Shabbos karamis, and we say no, tuma is one thing, but muktzeh, it's always muktzeh. Yes, it's not muktzeh. It's always muktzeh, but it's also always for good for to be metaltel, because dovash malach talisu, klish malach talisu, allowed to move tzov gufa mekoymer. Next Mishnah. Today we're going to learn something super, super, super exciting. The history of muktzeh. Very, very interesting how the history of muktzeh works. Zog Mishnah. This Mishnah has one clear title, and the title is Muktzeh Machmas Chesron Kis. Things that are that are always meant to stay on the side and not be used for anything except for their own purpose. That's the definition of Muktzeh Machmas Chesron Kis. Not like they always taught you something expensive. It doesn't have to be expensive. Expensive is just one way to get the kis. Yeah, but there are many things that are not expensive, but they're very sensitive or very professional. I guess they're expensive, but the said it's that thing that neither your kids nor your wife know. You don't touch that. It's something that's very specific, something of science, something of art that only the artist touches them only for that specific purpose. Yeah, and nothing else. That's the rather poshut definition. Of course, I'm a that's the basic definition of muktzeh machmas cheson kis. What's the difference between cheson kis and the others? Cheson kis, you are not allowed to move for gufa mikoymer. Yeah, okay. Let's say the hammer, which is we had it already. Remember? Let's do some chazure. You have the hammer, which is regular hammer. it's thrown over there at the end of the machzan on the floor. Maybe I have a nice tool. My neighbor has nicer toolbox than me. Yeah, and what you have the hammer over there. You don't exactly keep it so hygienic and special. Are you allowed to crack the nuts with it? Crack whatever you want with it, as long as it's not someone's head. It's not kept for anything miyuchad, right? You use it for your sukkah, use it for, I don't know, whatever you want, smashing something. But let's say you have a special hammer that's meant only for who? For the basomim, or special hammer that's used only for perfume, for making perfume. Ooh, that's special fancy because it has to be kept very nice. For the perfume, it has to smell nice and be delicate. Such a thing is called what? Muktzeh machmas chesron kis. And that you cannot use from gufa and mekoymer. That's halacha today, 2024. Says the Mishnah, Rabbi Yossi Omer, kol kelim nitolin, all kelim can be moved around, at least for gufa mekoymoy, chutz min masar hagodol v'yoset shel machresha. Masar is a Yiddish meser. It's a big knife. You have a specifically big knife that's meant for cutting wood, and people want it to stay straight. That meser, I'm very makpid, it should stay straight and nice, and it's a big thing. Yeah, v'yoset shel machresha, a plow. Yeah, I don't know when was the last time you plow a field. We're going to touch on that. Very nice, Akiva. We'll get there. The Yosef Shel Machresha. Yosef Shel Machresha, basically a plow. What does the plow have in the bottom? A knife. Yeah, the knife that gets into the ground as you plow the earth, the ground, the dirt, has to be very sharp and has to be, I guess, very sensitive, very choshuv. You don't use it for anything else. So on Shabbos, if you want to use those big, not sharp items that are dedicated and designated only for their melacha, nobody dare touch them. Daddy will get very upset. That's his working tools. Such a thing that is meant miyached mokom and not meant for any other melacha. If on Shabbos you decided to cut the cheese with it or the meat, you change them out. You cannot do that. Can't do that. Use another knife. Zog the Gemara, Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman brings more items into the story, and so does Abaye. Hi, Uchla de Katzri. Uchla de Katzri. Katzri are washmen, are koivsim. Yeah, people who wash, the dry cleaner, the washer. Uchla de Katzri means one of two things. It's a vessel of the Katzri, either the sprinkle. It's basically like a round item with lots of holes in it. Either you sprinkle water through it onto the laundry, to sprinkle water, or you put it underneath to put the good smell, the aroma, the perfume, either to perfumate it or to wash it. But it's something that the katzri, washerman, how do you say in English? The guy who washes, yeah, that guy, he only uses it for washing and nothing else. It's kiyoset shel machresha damya. What's the chiddush? It's considered kiyoset shel machresha. Yeah, it's something that you don't touch except for when you work, and that's the also shamachesha. It's like the plow of the Mishnah. You can't use it for anything else. I think the chiddush is that the other things in the Mishnah, what are they? They are big, and this one is not big. One could say the Havamina that Mishnah only gave me examples of items that are large, and Rashi mentions it. Rashi's Meramis. Rashi says that both items of the Mishnah, yeah, the Meser, Godol, Yetzer Shemachesha, they're large. So maybe because they're so big, you don't move them around. The Gemara, the Amoraim say no. Even smaller items, if they're choshuv and professional sensitive, are also called machmas. Yeah, they're also considered as that, even though they're not so big. Abai brings more stuff to the story, more examples to the same concept. Omar Abaye says Abaye says as follows. Omar Abaye, Charva de Ushkefi, Charva de Kecherev, the knife of the shoemakers, the Sakina de Ashkavta. Sakina de Ashkavta is Gufa Machlokes Rashi Toisfes. Sakina de Ashkavta, Rashi says the butcher's knife. Look at Toisfes, Akiva, you were right. Toisfes says Sakin Sheshoichtin Ba. The chalif of the shoichet has to be very, very, very sharp, right? So therefore, you don't move it anywhere. You keep it only for its purpose, right? And what's the third thing? The chatzina de nagri. Chatzina de nagri is an X of the nagri of the carpenters. So all these knives, all these sharp items. It's interesting, by the way, if you noticed, many of these items are sharp because you want to keep them very, very sharp. You don't want them to get blunt by cutting all kinds of things with them. But the truth is, it's not everything that's sharp. Uchla de katzri is not sharp. Uchla de katzri is round and just full of holes, right? I'm not sure it's round, by the way, but it's for sure full of holes. and that's also kenafa. It's like a sieve. Basically, anything you keep for the job and it's sensitive and choshuv, keep it on the side. That's it. Tana Rabbanon. Oh, now we're going to get to the origins of what's called gezerah scalim, and we'll see how today's muktzeh, yeah, how the original origins, how they came about. What's the origins of muktzeh? Weiter. Tonobonon. Barishona hoyu omrim. Originally, some point in history, and soon we'll see when that was. At the beginning, I'll tell you already now, this is talking about Bais Sheni. The beginning of Bais Sheni, if you remember, times of Ezra and Nechemia, people were married to non-Jewish women, and there was a lot of Chilul Shabbos in Yerushalayim. People needed a lot of chizuk. It was after the Golus of 70 years. They were in Bavel, in a place which wasn't so, Bavel then was not so strong spiritually like in the times of the Gemara. And they were badly influenced, and there was a lot of Chilul Shabbos Mamish Beferesi going on. So Nehemiah made a takana that was very, very, very strict in order to make sure that people really toe the line. Yeah, he made a super strict takana of muktzeh in a very, very strict form, not to move almost any kli in the world. They're not allowed to move around. Wow. In order to really, bring it home clearly, the Shabbos is not a joke. Back then, Rabbanim could make zeros. Like today, you can't do that anymore.
But in the times of the Mishnah, the bubble was strong.
Yeah, in the times of the Gemara, yes. The times of the Gemara bubble was always mentioned as a center of Torah. Mishnah, I don't know, but Gemara for sure, yes. Right, let's see. Barshana Yomrin, at the beginning there was a gezerah. Shloisha kelim nitolim l'Shabbos. Only 3 items, 3 kelim, allowed to move on Shabbos. Wow. Can you imagine? Let's see what these kelim are. We'll explain. Muktzeh shel dveila, the knife that you meant to cut the dveila. Dveila we see many, many times. You know what's dveila? It's the fig pie. A lot of figs that are stuck together. Fig was a very basic kind of food. They're allowed to cut the knife, to use the cutting knife of the dveila. The zuama listeran is a ladle, the ladle of the soup, because the ladle of the soup is also made in order to remove the dirt from the side of the soup, right? When you cook soup, so many times there's residue that stays on top and you have to clean it. So that spoon is very important. Shel kedera, the one of the pot. The sakin ktana shel gabi shulchan. Sakin ktana shel gabi shulchan is a small knife when you eat, right? Today you had a nice Shabbos meal, I hope. You had a knife and a fork. A knife is very important to cut the meat. Let me explain something. Basically, the story is as follows. Tosfos points out here that, of course, receptacles were not osir. Of course, people were allowed to drink and eat from plates and drink from from cups, not from their hands, because there's no choice. So Chachamim still allowed you to use receptacles. But anything that's not a receptacle, anything, the only knives or forks or spoons that were allowed, no forks were allowed. Only a spoon, and even the spoon, only the big one, and only the knife. You want to have soup? Drink the soup like that. Can't use a regular spoon. Wow. In other words, they made it tremendously strong there. One second. Not to use any kli on Shabbos, except for receptacles, because you have to hold stuff inside. Besides that, everything was osir. Of course, Sforim were allowed, because Sforim are also not a Kli, Sifrei Kodesh, and clothes. But other than that, any Kli for anything, of course, Kelim of Isser, even Kelim Shel Heter, were not allowed, because they wanted to make a crazily strict Zera to show people how strict we are, how yielding we are when it comes to Shmiras Shabbos. Yeah? Thank you. We have to get on a roll here to get the picture, okay? And then what happened historically? Now I have to listen carefully, because that formula will repeat itself twice. Hetiru, then they allowed certain kelim. There was a later time in history when they allowed certain types of kelim, certain. The chazu ve'etiru, again they allowed something later on. The chazu ve'etiru the third time. Every time they're relaxed and released and allowed a little bit more. Ad she'amru, the fourth time, there was a four-stage process. Ad she'amru kol hakelim intolim b'Shabbos, chutz v'nemes ha'gadol v'yos shemachreisha. That's a brisa. So basically, let's just follow the general structure. Now we're going to see Mechlokes Abai and Rove. Basically, Originally, everything was also to move on Shabbos, believe it or not, except for your clothes and your kelim that are to hold something inside, your clothes, your sfarm, and that is food, of course. But kalim that are kalim to use, to cut, to whatever, to serve, to move, to this, those kalim were not allowed to be used at all, except for the basic Klosha kalim. I saw in the Rishonim that there were other kalim similar to them. Yeah, but basically basic kitchen tools, basic table tools, and things like that. Yeah, it does say more than three. I saw in the Ritva, I think I saw somewhere in the Rishonim, but very, very limited in order to show people, guys, on Shabbos, you're barely allowed to move. Chachamim knew it's going to be temporary because Baruch Hashem, people got the message. Instead of complaining, why the rabbi is making my life a misery? So instead of that, people got the message and were obedient as it should be, and people started keeping Shabbos more and better, and therefore Chachamim then allowed lechatchila, they allowed them to, do a little bit more. They allowed them more and more room to maneuver until we came to the situation that everything is allowed to be moved, as we're going to explain later, except for machmas chesron kis. Let's see. Now, let's see how to interpret that historic process. What was it exactly that they allowed in each stage? That's a machlokas Abaye and Rava, first wide line. Amar Abaye, Etiru, the first point of heter, the first heter stage. Etiru davar shemalachto leheter, letzorach gufay. Oh, Baruch Hashem, sigh of relief. They allow you to use davar shemalachto leheter. Let's take an example, a regular kitchen spoon. Yeah, the teaspoon, the teaspoon or the soup spoon you eat with, they allow you to use it. All kelim of heter. What's l'tzorach gufa? For the purpose of heter. You want to take the spoon in order to eat the soup with gesundheit. You don't have to drink it like in a Chinese style. You can just use the spoon. You have to use forks for heter. The chazur v'etir davar shemlachto leheter l'tzorach mekoimoy. Stage number 2. They allow you to use the davar shemlachto leheter l'tzorach mekoimoy. Welcome to a new term. What's tzorach mekoimoy? If I need the space. Let's say that fork, which is a klish mlachto leheter, you need the space. I want to take off the table. Yeah, I need now to remove it from the table for the next meal. I'm allowed to move it because I need the space. That's allowed. That's tzorach mekoimoy. Stage number 3. The chozo v'tir davar shemlachto leisur. Oh, wow. Now davar shemlachto leisur, give me an example. A hammer, an axe, a pen, a pencil. Letzorich gufo in, letzorich mekoimoy loy. Abaye believes that gufa and mekoimoy are not the same level. If you notice, that's his shita. We'll see it later on. They only allow you to move davar shemlachto leisur letzorich gufo. Okay, so I'm allowed to take the hammer, the regular push the hammer that I'm banging with the sukkah, and what? I'm allowed to use it for tzorich gufo, to crack the coconut. But not letzorach mekoimoy. Not letzorach mekoimoy. If that hammer is disturbing me because I need the space, some smart 3 years old puts the hammer over here, I am not allowed to move it off the table to remove it. Letzorach mekoimoy. Please remember that, because that'll be the main machlokes between Abaye and Rava. Abaye's shita is that up today, if Abaye was alive today, 2024, almost 5, you're not allowed to remove a klish mlachto leisur for tzorach mekoimoy. You need the space. Tough. You can't move klish mlachto leisur or tzorach mekoimoy. That's not the halacha, but that's Abaye. Now, stage number 4. There are always 4 stages. V'adayin. Last but not least, beyod achas in bishteyodov loy, which means, let's say the kli is very large, not super large, but it's a kind of kli that you need 2 hands to hold it, like a big pot. You can't move it with one hand, only with 2 hands. You're not allowed to move. Yeah, that was at the 4th stage. At Sha'amu, at the 4th stage, it's the same stage. Kol kelim and tolim b'Shabbos v'afil b'shtei yadayim. Okay, in other words, the 4th heter was, and that was the last one, you're allowed to move kelim al b'shtei yadayim. Even if the kli is very large. Remember we had that issue not so long ago, b'menorah shel beis Rebbe. If a kli is large, maybe it's called non-kli because I set it aside. I need 2 hands. Maybe it's like muktzeh from my mind to leave it in the corner. No. The chiddush is there was a stage in which allowed that too. Let's summarize Abaye. According to Abaye, you can move klishut melachto leheter for everything, guf and mekoimoy. By the way, it's not everything. We'll discuss it soon, but guf and mekoimoy to be discussed later. Kli shemalachto le'isu, only for gufay. You can take that, legendary proverbial hammer and crack the nut with it and crack whatever you need with it, right? Don't break anyone's head, please. But you're not allowed to take it for mechamel etzel and not even mekoimoy. You can't take it you can't remove it because you need the space. That's a big difference, la halacha, right? We're also going to discuss mechamel etzel, but Abaye is not even there. The kids are according to Abaye. Please, you're not allowed to move tzorech mekoimoy. And by the way, what's the largest kli you can move? If you move it with your two hands, that's another discussion. We'll discuss that later. But the main thing of Abaye now is what? Kli shemanachto leisu, only for gufay, not for mekoimoy. Amar Rove. Rove is disagreeing with Abaye yet again. Amar Rove. It says that they allowed the same stage that they allowed X, they would allow Y, meaning Malatzach Gufa Malatzach Mekoimoy. Rather, in Abaye, that's one of the disagreements, which we'll also see later on. Rabbi says, I don't see the difference between Gufa and Mekoimoy. I don't see that Gufa and Mekoimoy is always like a different stage that needs a whole new pace. They're one and the same. Gufa and Mekoimoy are of the same level of importance. Yeah, just like I need the knife or whatever to cut because I need it for its purpose, I also need the space. It's taking space from me. I see it as equally important. Ella, therefore, Rabbi has a whole new interpretation about the four-stage process. Ella marove. Let's go back to the dawn of history. What was the story? Everything was Aser. Everything, including mutter, except for the three basic kelim. Then they allowed klish malachto leheter, spoons, knives, forks, plates, everything, gufa or mekoimar. That's stage number one. Stage number two, the chozo v'tiru, mechamel etzel. Oh, mechamel etzel is a new kid in town. Chozo v'tiru mechamel etzel is very, very important. What chozo v'tiru mechamel etzel? Mechamel etzel means, what about if I move a kli for the purpose of the kli? It's in the sun, and the sun is destroying it. Computer, tefillin, lavdil, things are destroyed in the sun, in the mirpeset. You want to move it from there in order to save the kli. Not because I need the space, because I want to save the kli from being destroyed. That was a second stage, and says Rove, and that's the halacha. You're allowed to move kli shemalachto leheter. If it's being destroyed somewhere, you're scared thieves will take it, kids will take it. Lavdil, it will get dirty, will get destroyed by the sun, by the rain. If it's kli shemalachto leheter, bring it from the mirpeset to the house. That's allowed. That was the second stage. Tefillin is melachto leisu, not a great example. I gave an example of melachto leisu, but let's say melachto leheter. Yeah, let's say this will get destroyed in the sun, or somebody will take it. The birds will make it dirty. Yeah, I'm allowed to move it into the house. It's a chiddush. Yeah, melachto leheter. Yeah, things in melachto leheter. Yeah, melachto leheter. Yeah, for example, like a spoon. You have a spoon outside. People will steal my nice silver spoon. I'm allowed to bring it in. Now, third stage. Vadayin, yeah. One second. The tefillin will get there soon. The chozav etir davosh machto leisur. Third stage. Letzoch gufa letzoch mekomo in mechamel tzeloi. That's the halacha, my friends, till today. Klishim machto leisur stage 3, which means everything that's machto leisur, such as maybe tefillin, such as many kelim that are osur, the hammer and the axe. You're allowed to move it both gufa and mekoima. That's halacha, but not mechamel etzel. If your computer is in the sun and what's going on, it's going to get destroyed. Tough luck. Maybe you can move it with your elbow or with your feet. That's okay. According to Shnebu, not according to Chazonish, you're allowed to maybe cover it from the top. You're allowed to touch it and cover it, but you're not allowed to take the computer with your hands and move it to the shady place because klish malachto leisu. Mechamel itself is not allowed, only for gufay and mekoimoy. That's stage number 3. What's the fourth and final stage? Vadayin ba'odam echad in b'shnei bnei odam loi. Still, they did not allow kelim that are so heavy they need 2 people, not 2 hands. Ad shomo kol kelim tolim b'shabbos tifilu b'shnei bnei odam. Oh, very good. It's a good place to stop here. But basically, what's the maskon according to Rove? Rove has 2 mechlokesim with Abaye. Rove says when they allowed the large kelim, even a large, huge kelim, you need 2 people, or I saw in the Ritva even 10 people to carry. it's still called a kli. We had this discussion between Rashi and Tosfos. It's funnily enough between Abai and Rova as well, according to Ritva. When you have a really big kli, they need two people to take, like a real big Elianovic chair, a real big cupboard, a real big whatever table. Yeah. According to Abaye, don't move it. You can't move it on Shabbos because it's so big. It's not called a kli anymore. It's beyond the kli. Mashenker, according to Rava, and that's the halacha. Yeah, Shinches, if base, it says there that you're allowed to move the kli on Shabbos, even if it's very large. So now, before we continue, and tomorrow I'll see you here, Be'ezras Hashem, let's summarize, and then we're going to have it very easy tomorrow. According to Machlokes number one between Abai and Rove, kli shemalachto le'isu letzorich mekoimoy. According to Abaye, all the four stages are already taken with other things. Yeah, they never got to allow that. To klish malach toliso, you want to move the hammer. The hammer is in the middle of my Shabbos table. How nice and decorative. A new type of, home design. Yeah, the 3 years old granddaughter decided to put the hammer bang in the middle of the table. Says Abaye, let it stay there and enjoy the kinder lachnachas. Yeah, that's Abaye will tell you. Your tefillin and your tefillin and your tefillin. Nachon. Machlokes achonim if mekli machlokes if tefillin klish machli. So according to some achonim, you can't move them, right? Unless it's bizoyon or something. It's different. Tefillin the table, you live with it. Now, according to Rove, klish machli isu is allowed. You can move it l'tzorch mekodim as
No,
well.
but what about
Of course, l'tzorch gufa everyone allows. Yeah, to use the hammer for banging something. L'tzorch mekodim, One second. Second machlokes, a kli that's very large and can only be taken and schlepped by two people, not one. Then, according to Abai, cannot move. According to Rav, you can move. Yes. So let's just say goodbye, and then I'll hear your questions. Shkoyach, thank you. Good tvach. Amazing how we have a muktzeh Shabbos matzav over here. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you to Me'am Loez, such a beautiful community, to Torah Anytime, and to all of us who watch us on YouTube. Shkoyach, thank you.